My name is Rob Knowles and I'll be delivering you a self-study for what's termed as the top-up training for people who are renewing their SIA security guard license, for those who took the training before the 1st of April 2021, or for those who've decided to downgrade from a door supervisor to a security guard license. And what I mean by downgrade is just really going for a license which is more appropriate for your role. I mean, historically, don't know how long you have been in the industry, but a door supervisor has been the most popular license due to license integration benefits. And for those who only wanted to be a security guard, i.e. they had no inclination ever of working on licensed premises, they had to do the door supervisor because it's very difficult to get on a security guard course. So think about your role and what you've been doing over the last X amount of years. If from time to time you work on licensed premises and you enjoy doing so, then you're on the wrong course. You should be doing the door supervisor upskill. But if you look at your roles and you don't work on licensed premises, you never have an intention of doing so, then it's probably more appropriate than you do this one, and it's going to save you some money and time. Because when you look at the top-up training, door supervisors is 2 days, security guard course is half a day. Well, actually less than that once you've done this learning. So this training is for either security officers renewing their licenses or for door supervisors who've decided to downgrade for the security guard in order to maintain a license which is really more appropriate for their role. So this self-study is mandatory for you to complete. It counts towards the overall learning time. It's stipulated by the SIA. Okay, so they gave the option really. You could either do a course face-to-face for security guard upskill, face-to-face over a period of 4 hours, or you could do it in just 50 minutes if you do the associated self-study. So by you completing it this way, cuts the contact time down from 4 hours to 50 minutes, and 50 minutes is just the time or simpler time it's going to take you to do your assessments when you show up for the classroom section of the course. Okay, so before we get into the main content, I just want to rewind for a second and just take a look at the actual top-up training modules itself, and then we'll have a look more specifically about the actual modules we'll be covering today. So the top-up training for security guards was produced by the industry for the industry. The content is a result of a consultation which took place between the SIA and the industry regarding what skills and knowledge security guards needed or required to have in order to perform their job more confidently and within the law, i.e. to be brought up to date. So the security guard top-up includes 3 main subject areas, 2 of which make up the security guard top-up qualification. Let's have a look at the modules and how they'll be delivered and assessed as part of the security guard upskill. So the modules are broken down into learning outcomes and assessment criteria. So in simple terms, the learning outcome is where you want to get to, and the assessment criteria is how we're going to be judged. So if we look at the topic of the first module, which is Principles of Terror Threat Awareness in the Private Security Industry, that's the name of the module. You can say that's the aim. And then the module has 1 learning outcome, which is broken down into 6 assessment criteria. So the learning outcome is to understand terror threats and the role of the security operative in the event of a threat. So that's a learning outcome. That's where you need to get to. How are you going to get there? Or how are they going to check that you've got there? Well, that's assessment criteria. So they're going to ask you questions in the exam about the following, which is 1.1, identify the different threat levels. So you need to know the difference between the counter or the terror threat levels. 1.2, recognize common terror attack methods. 1.3, recognize the actions to take in the event of a terror threat. 1.4 is identify the procedures for dealing with suspicious items. 1.5, identify behaviors that could indicate suspicious activity. And 1.6, identify how to respond to suspicious behavior. So as long as you can answer questions on all of those, you'll have achieved the overall outcome, learning outcome, which is understand terror threats and the role of the security operative within in the event of a security threat. So that module is not delivered by me, it's delivered by Highfields. When I say Highfields, they're the ones that produce the learning. But it was actually developed by counter-terror professionals, okay, and from the NACSO, which is the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. So they produced a training program, it's been out some time now, called ACT, okay, which stands for Action Counters Terrorism. It's actually a really good course, to be honest. It's better than this. It's a little bit more interactive. They got a lot more money in than I have. It's a good course. You'll enjoy it. It takes around about 45 minutes to do one module and then 10 minutes to do the other module. So there's two modules there. One is kind of generic and one is more security focused. So how are you going to actually be assessed? Okay, well, when you show up to the course on the face-to-face version, you'll take a multiple choice exam consisting of just 10 questions. You'll have 20 minutes and you need to get 7 out of 10 to pass, so 70% to pass that module. The second module, which makes up the TopUp training, so module 2, and that's the principles of minimizing personal risk for security officers within the private security industry. So this module is made up of two learning outcomes and 13 in total assessment criteria. Okay, so in brief, as we're going to be covering these today, learning outcome 1 then is know how to minimize risk to personal safety at work. In case you didn't know already, because of you've not been oh no, you have been working. Yes, this is okay. You have been working for a while, haven't you? And it could be anything from 3 years to 20 years, right? But it's one of those, you know, jokes aside, the training is to ensure that everybody is on the same hymn sheet rather than teaching your granny to suck eggs. Because of you personally, you may have been working in high violent or high risk areas, but you may have just been working in a gatehouse, you may have just been working in site security, so you kind of never see or, you know, anyone or deal with anything. So again, this is just to ensure everyone's on the same hymn sheet. Okay, so I've been waffling a bit there, so let's go. What's the learning outcome again? You remember? So it's know how to minimize personal safety at work. And what's the assessment criteria? How do they break that down? So there's 12 in this one, and I am going to read them out to you now because of there's likely going to be questions in the exam about these. So I'm going to look at the main headings and then we'll break them down. So 1.1, identify your responsibilities to personal safety at work. 1.2, identify situations that might compromise personal safety. 1.3, identify the risks of ignoring personal safety in conflict situations. So 1.4, state the personal benefits of undertaking dynamic risk assessments. 1.5, list the ways to minimize risk to personal safety at work. 1.6, recognize the different types of personal protective equipment relevant to the role of the security officer. 1.7, state the purpose of using body-worn cameras, otherwise known as BWCs. 1.8, identify strategies that can assist personal safety in conflict situations. 1.9, describe limits of your own responsibility in physical intervention situations. 1.10, identify types of harm that can occur during physical intervention situations. 1.11, identify the personal safety advantages of mental alertness at work. And 1.12, identify the benefits of reflecting on personal safety experiences. So the other learning outcome we can be covered it was this. Remember, learning outcome 1, right? Had lots. There's 12 there, but don't worry. Learning outcome 2 just has 1. It's just 1 assessment criteria. So learning outcome 2 is know what actions to take in relation to a global or critical incident. I know what you're thinking, right? What's that actually got to do with the module title, which is Principles of Minimizing Personal Risk for Security Officers? Yes, I know. I think, you know, with what's been going on lately in the world, you know, the modules are already done, and then someone turned around and said, how about the pandemic? What if we had another one? You know, oh yeah, good idea. Okay, well, we'll chuck it in here. So though it may not seem relevant, it actually is, isn't it? It's just not really relevant to the title. But anyway. Okay, so learning outcome 2 is know what actions to take in relation to a global or critical incident. And there's just 1 assessment criteria, 2.1, which is know government guidance in relation to global or critical incidents. So how are you going to be assessed? How are you going to be assessed in this module? So on the face-to-face portion of the course, you'll take a multiple choice exam consisting this time of 16 questions, and you have 25 minutes to answer those, and you need just 12 out of 16 to pass. So that's 70%. The other subject area that makes up the security officer, well, it's actually the same as the door supervisor. It's the mandatory requirement for all door supervisors or security operatives to be first aid trained as a prerequisite prior to either attending for the first course for the first time or for people renewing their licenses. Now, you know, it's one of those, you know, I mean, yeah, 100%, I agree that door supervisors and security guards should at the very least, the very minimum, have basic first aid skills. But why do they need them before taking the course? I can understand why why you should have it before getting a license, but why the course? I don't know. I don't make the rules, I just follow them, right? But it's one of those. Okay, so that's the other one. You need to have first aid. Now, if you don't have first aid, you need it. So that means you could either book it through me, through us, through Skills to Jobs and or elsewhere, or if you've already got first aid qualification with more than 12 months, remember you need more than 12 months left on the first aid qualification, you must make sure you get that to us before the start of the course.